Greetings from Edley's Barbecue. Basically at Paytonsville Road and 65. A delicious, delicious place to eat. I'm Paul Kuharsky. This is the Paul Kuharsky podcast where we talk about the Titans. I am part of 440 Sports. I'm brought to you by Edley's, where I sit, which has 8 locations around Middle Tennessee. Also Zen Sports, which is the place for you to go bet on Sunday's championship games. I haven't looked at the spreads, but if I'm doing money line, I'm betting on the Bills and the Eagles, and I think that would be a great Super Bowl. I think the Bills are going to break through and win the Lombardi Trophy this year. I'm here for a massive Q&A. We base these things around your questions a lot. This one is going to be a lot. So retweet or point your friends to YouTube, where you need to hit a thumbs up. You need to subscribe. If you're listening later on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. We appreciate all that. Come get a meal at Edley's this weekend. I will be eating after this show while I continue to drink mounds and mounds of Diet Coke. And I may scratch out a bet at Zen Sports on the championship games. I welcome you all here. Do want to preview 2 stories, and a couple of you are already mentioning them. Sam and Richard both talking about a scouting piece. So I can only show you a little snippet. There is what the Titans grading sheet is going to look like. What they're doing. But I wrote, you heard, Richard, I appreciate your thanks. We heard Chad Brinker. You didn't hear it, but you saw us write about. He said, when Mike Borgonzi says a guy's a 59, I know exactly what he means. Well, we didn't know exactly what he means, but if you read this piece, I told you exactly what a 59 means. It's actually a 5.9. I broke down for you what the Titans' new scouting grade system is compared to what the scouting grade system has been for the last 2 years, in pretty good detail. I was actually impressed with how much information I was able to get on this with some help from people in other markets with other teams. And so that's a great read for you at paulkuharsky.com. If you're not a member, there's a reason you should be. Another piece today about this idea of having 30 draft picks over 3 years and 12 draft picks of those 30 in the top 100 in those 3 years. I'll give you a taste of that story. From 2021 to 2024, 0 teams had that many picks. A couple came close. I break down the whole league from 2021 to 2023 in this piece and look at the 4 teams who came closest to doing it. And you can look at what they've done, how many All-Pros and Pro Bowlers they got out of those classes, how much they are the spines of those teams, and how realistic it is for the Titans to maybe get there. The thing about the Titans trying to get there, I think it's realistic that they could get into close range of that if they trade out of number 1 this year. The thing is, that means they probably won't have drafted a quarterback this year, and then they would need to draft a quarterback next year. And if you're drafting a quarterback next year, you would be using some of the resources you acquire to move up to get that quarterback, and then you would be out of range of those numbers. Marty Clark asks how I am and thanks me for the coverage. I am very well. Trey says Pete Carroll in Las Vegas feels rather random, as he just, I'm guessing he's saying, been out of football the last couple of years. I think it's only been 1 year, right? Wasn't this McDonald's first year in Seattle? Wasn't he a rookie coach? Seems like a long time, but it has not been that long of a time. And I think that's a hell of a hire. I mean, the thing is that Pete Carroll's not going to be your coach for 10 years. I saw it was a 3-year deal with a team option for a 4th. But the guy's eternally young. A very good and steady football coach who's got a very good resume. And the league tends to forget a guy like that too quickly. I think it's about as good a hire as the Raiders were going to manage. And I think I think if you leave him alone, let's see who his GM's going to be. Have we seen a report about that? The Liam Cohn story is ridiculous. Albert Breer wrote a short, tight piece detailing basically what went on. He went back from his first Jaguars interview. He went back to Tampa and said, make me the highest paid coordinator in history and I'll stay. And the Bucs did so on the condition that he not go back to Jackson for a second interview. And then Jacksonville fired Trent Baalke, who was obviously a huge obstacle to Liam Cohn being interested in the job. Liam Cohn had a sick child at the same time. Jacksonville said, look, we fired the guy who's the obstacle, come back for a second interview. He kind of, was tiptoeing between. He wanted to keep his option open with Tampa, but he also wanted to go to Jacksonville. Jacksonville needed to get a second interview in for the Rooney Rule. Jacksonville, of course, bumbling things along the way. But Liam Cohn, the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, going to basically pick his GM, which is unheard of power for a first-year rookie coach. Kyle Shanahan, the only guy that's kind of had that. And that means that Baker Mayfield, I believe, is going to have his 9th offensive coordinator in 9 years in Tampa Bay. And it makes you wonder if the Bucs wouldn't have been better off if they believe in Liam Cohn to the degree that the Jags do. And all indications are they love the guy and think he's going to be a great head coach. Todd Bowles hangs on yet again. And I don't know. I mean, it's hard to know what Liam Cohn's going to be, right? But wouldn't you have liked to keep Baker Mayfield with the same coordinator for once and build that team? And Todd Bowles, I guess, is a steady guy, but I think maybe Tampa Bay would have been better off moving on to Liam Cohn. Trey Wynn says, I think Washington's recent success has Titans fans thinking they can draft Ward or Sanders and get the same results. A trade back seems like the best move with the roster needs. My thoughts. I think that Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are a far cry from Jaden Daniels. And you just can't equate things that aren't equal. And they're not equal. So you got to be really careful about assuming things like that. Also seems like there's been a shift as guys who cover the scouting community have learned more from their scouts that Cam Ward is regarded as the guy here who's more likely to be judged as worth the number 1 pick, and Shedeur is not. That Sanders is regarded as the second quarterback here. Jay says Abdul Carter is the clear number 1. I don't know about that. Let's not state opinions as facts. But I think Ted McMillan should be taken over Travis Hunter for wide receiver 1. Well, you can argue about who wide receiver 1 is. I don't know that anybody's taking Travis Hunter as wide receiver 1. They're taking Travis Hunter as player 1, as a cornerback who can play some wide receiver. How you doing? Nice to see you. Love being amidst the people. Here we go. Sam, one of my main men. My personal opinion on it is if Callahan falls in love with a quarterback, you take him, unless someone offers you a trade that makes you feel like you've committed a crime. If you don't love either quarterback, Carter. The thing is, can't you get Carter at 2 or 3? I think you really just got to do everything you can if you don't like the quarterbacks to get out of 1 and let somebody take the quarterbacks 1. Do I consider Travis Hunter to be a generational talent? I'm going to hit you with a solid and convincing and convicted maybe. Maybe he's a generational talent. I need to watch more. I need to talk to more people. But I don't think there are many generational talents in this draft. And I think there's some drafts without generational talents. So I don't think it's a definite that the Titans see a generational talent in this draft. And if they don't, they certainly can trade down. And Borgonzi, we should make mention, said that this Brinker thing about the 30 picks with 12 in the top 100 is doable if you're disciplined and trade down. And so the Titans would have to commit to that if they really wanted to get there or get there. And JR says, it'd be great to trade back 2 to 3 for Carter, but scouts are lowering their stock on both quarterbacks. We think scouts are lowering their stock on both quarterbacks. We don't know what scouts are doing per se. And there's all kind of game playing that's underway now that's going to be going on now all the way to the end of April, where some are telling reporters what they think, and some are telling reporters what their team want to get out, and some are telling reporters what they think, but they're not people in power who are going to be able to sway things. And general managers and decision makers, this is one of the most important things to remember, that decision makers who are not close to final decisions on guys do not share their outright opinions at the end of this thing with their rooms anymore, because they're more and more concerned with those opinions getting out, right? And so the circle has shrunk and it is tight. And I wouldn't be surprised with the Tennessee Titans if at the end of this thing, the Titans' final top 6 in terms of being locked in is known by Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker and Brian Callahan, and that's it. And that those guys all say, we're not telling anybody that. We're not telling your right-hand man. We're not telling the assistant GMs. We're not telling the coordinators. Nobody. And so, the guy, the best friend of the assistant GM who's at the kid's birthday party, he can't find out from the assistant GM anything in the, hey, come on, just tell me. I want some insight. Well, that conversation is prevented from happening because that guy won't know. Ed Henry also liked the scout grade article. Do I get the sense that the scouts have a seat at the table with the GM directly, or does it get represented by the heads of scouting? No, they have a seat at the table directly. I mean, there's a big table. Everybody's at it. It doesn't get funneled up that way. They have meeting where they go by position, presumably, and they're talking about defensive ends or outside pass rushers, outside linebackers, and the Northeastern guy's going to talk about Abdul Carter. And while he talks about Abdul Carter, then the cross-checker is going to talk about, I want that off, the cross-checker is going to talk about Abdul Carter, and then the Southwest scout's going to talk about Arizona State guy, and the Northwest scout's going to talk about Oregon guy. I don't know how they've divided that up now, because there still needs to be some regional sense. So if you have a Big Ten scout, well, boy, his travel schedule was very difficult this year. But however they've got it divided up regionally, all of those guys will speak on their guys at their positions. And then the cross-checkers will talk, and then the director of college scouting will talk, and then assistant GM or GMs will talk, and then Borgonzi and Brinker will be chiming in and talk. Everybody gets heard. It's a matter of how much they're listened to. Really. Yeah, Zach, I think, raised a good point here. If there's generational talents in every draft, then we need to change the definition of generation. And I agree with that. And I don't think teams have problems. I don't think the Titans have a problem with overrating talent. I talked to one person while I was getting some information on these grading systems, and they were kind of characterizing the Titans' current system to me, saying that, in that the highest grade, which is actually flip, so it would be 1.1. That there might be a 1.1 in a draft. 1.1, maybe. Some talk about trading Ridley. People always want to trade high-cost guy and presume to replace them with cheap free agents or hit every draft pick. I agree with that, Logan. Here's the thing about trading somebody like Ridley. If you trade somebody like Ridley, you've got to get multiple picks in return, right? And who's giving multiple picks for Calvin Ridley? If you find a buyer who wants to give you multiple picks for Ridley, great. I mean, if you can get a second and a fourth for Calvin Ridley, would you do that? I'd certainly consider it. But like the response there, or like Logan said, you're presuming there that you're hitting on both of those picks and getting that same production, and that's a dangerous game. The Titans have few guys that you could count on for production right now. And so if you're going to deal the productive guys, you're really considering the bottoming out. And Sam is saying, though, that's what got J-Rob in trouble. I mean, when you're dealing A.J. Brown, first off, A.J. Brown's a better talent than Calvin Ridley, right? If you've got A.J. Brown, that level of talent, that team should have been built around Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown, no question. Right? You can't deal A.J. Brown over money and over an argument. It's just ridiculous. Look at Terry McLaurin, look at Deebo Samuel, look at DK Metcalf. All of them were in the same situations. All three of those other teams found ways to keep their guys, and they are backbone guys for those three teams. When we were in Washington this year to watch the Titans against the Commanders, the love for Terry McLaurin from the fan base there was unbelievable. And it is like what A.J. Brown would have been in Tennessee, even though A.J. Brown's got some of the difficult qualities of a difficult wide receiver. But if you trade that guy and it's not the Justin Jefferson Diggs trade, you're killing yourself. You're creating a major need. So you got to be positive that you're filling that need. And with this team, they've got no wide receivers under contract. I mean, the wide receivers under contract beyond Ridley are Jaquan Jones and, talk about undependable. Traylon Burks. I mean, NWI's their second best guy. He's not under contract. Their third best guy, Boyd, has no speed and isn't really an appealing guy, and he's not under contract. So they got to have somebody who's under contract at wide receiver. So I think if you're dealing him, it's pretty dangerous. Pretty dangerous. Now, I'd argue differently about Jeffrey Simmons, who I think is part of the problem, though he's a good player. I think Jeffrey Simmons is replaceable, and I think part of the leadership problems with Jeffrey Simmons are part of the Titans' DNA problem right now. And I don't know that their leadership ever gets straightened out until they have new defensive leadership. Well, here's a debate that Jay's obviously having with Zach. You don't let Callahan make decisions to save himself. Well, he's not making decisions. He's participating in decisions. Mike, you can read about the grading system in depth at paulkuharsky.com. All it takes is $7.99 a month membership. I can't wait to have it. Ed Henry asks, is this equivalent to the Mariota Winston year in my mind? I mean, I think Mariota and Winston we're not far along enough in this for me to say for sure. My feeling now is that those guys were more promising coming out. Logan, you're not even down to NWI as your top receiver if you get rid of Ridley, because NWI isn't under contract. And I think a lot of us wouldn't be surprised to see him under contract in New England, though Vrabel's not going to overpay him. But I think there are plenty of teams in the league that think like, hey, we need a touchdown scoring wide receiver would be the difference on our team, and they'll look at NWI. if they dealt Ridley for picks and NWI is not under contract, the best receiver they would have under contract is Traylon Burks. Let that sink. Unless you're a big Colton Dowell guy coming off a torn ACL. And that's fair. Ridley is a fine wide receiver 2. He's not a wide receiver 1. But you deal him for unknown picks, and you have wide receiver 0. Adam, he's absolutely a wide receiver 2. Wide receiver 1 does not run out of bounds on a crucial, was it a third down or a fourth down where he ran out of bounds well short of the marker. He dropped the balls that he dropped. He lacks a certain sense of space. He's a good player, makes some explosive plays. But your wide receiver 1 is going to be up in Brian Callahan's offense. It's going to be up near 1,700 yards, not near 1,000 yards. Logan says, whatever you think a Titans player would fetch in a trade, drop it 2 rounds. I mean, I think most of us would agree the 2 most valuable commodities they have trading a player would be Jeffrey Simmons and Calvin Ridley, right? And I mean, Simmons is a guy you could look, and again, it creates holes. That's why I think you'd have to get 2 picks for either one of them to even consider it. I mean, Pollard has trade value, but you can't trade Pollard. He's kind of your foundational guy, right? I mean, other guys have trade value, but you're not trading Latham. You're not trading Sweat. You're not trading Brownlee. You're not trading guys from the last 2 years who are, the young core of your football team. You don't have enough of those guys, but you're certainly not trading them. Skoronski maybe isn't quite what you want yet, but I think he got increasingly better as the season went along, and I really expect him to be good next year, like good. 3rd year, 2nd year under Bill Callahan. I think he's a smart guy. I'm expecting big things from Skoronski next year. Tyjae Spears, good player that could be coveted by some teams, but they're going to find a part-time back like that, pretty easily in a draft, pretty easily lower in a draft than the 3rd round that the Titans foolishly spent on a guy like that. Look at everyone else, Trey said. Simmons, Snead. I mean, Snead's trade value before he proves that he's healthy, very low. Landry, conceivably, but I don't know that you're getting much for him. Murray, nobody wanted to pay Murray $7 million a year last year, which is why he wound up on the Titans. So I don't think they have a ton of trade commodities. What else do we got? I am taking questions here primarily at the Paul Kuharsky podcast. I'm at Edley's in Berry Farms on Paytonsville Road, just off Paytonsville Road, near the intersection of 65, which is my home base, Edley's. My family and I eat here a lot, or order from here a lot. Food is spectacular. Can't go wrong here. I don't know if they have the fried ribs today. I didn't check. You know why I didn't check? Because the temptation is too strong for me to take that stuff home. And I can't infiltrate my house with that stuff. But I might find out if they have it and eat it here before I leave. If I don't, I'll probably get the burnt ends on the grits. The grits are a little spicy. Burns me a little bit. I'm a little bit of a wimp. I get the baked beans and the 3-bean salad. It's just vinegary enough to really get me going. Then they've got this cornbread. It's fantastic, of course. Then they got this butter bar I eat for dessert, which I don't need. Do I need dessert? Do I look like a guy that needs dessert on top of a full barbecue meal to you? Of course I'm not. I'm not a guy that needs that dessert. Will I get it anyway? Of course I will, because I've got no self-control. I'm not in a great mood today, by the way. I'm not in a great mood today because the same reason I'm always not in a great mood. The number one thing, people refuse to drive fast on the highway. just about 4 stops away from me on 65, and I'm on a highway filled with people that want to drive 45 to 55. Why is that? Look, I've become a Nashvilleian. I've lived here since 1997, and still I will vouch for the North. In the North, people want to go. They want to go. In the South, people want to stop. They want to stop. Why? Why is this the case? Edley's, Franklin and Berry Farms, Franklin at the factory, 5 points in East Nashville. Sylvan Park, Donaldson, Gallatin, 12 South Nolensville. One of those is near you, I bet. One of them is near you, and you should go to one of them tonight, tomorrow, Sunday. Before the weekend's over, there's no reason you shouldn't have had a meal at Edley's Barbecue. No reason whatsoever. Let's all retweet, keep this conversation going, and get some more people involved, fired up, asking questions. I think we're having a good time. Do I get a sense that Callahan is as tree-wanting as Vrabel? Yeah, I don't really get it. If not, then perhaps Slowick can be considered an OC pairing with him. This idea that he's shopping for an OC type, I think, probably needs to be let go. I don't see it. You know, I don't see it. And Slowick was good for, Houston judged him to be good for C.J. Stroud for a year, and then they judged him not to be good for C.J. Stroud for a year, a playoff year. But he did regress. The Titans have a C.J. Stroud type quarterback? Not right now, they don't. James says they need a right tackle. I think, James, everybody is pretty aware of that. When is the PK machine going to the Senior Bowl or other All-Star games? I will not be at All-Star games. I don't find All-Star games to be very fruitful. I don't want to spend a lot of time writing about a lot of guys who are not going to be Titans. I will have contributions from the Senior Bowl because I know you'd like some of that, and we will get it. But I find other events later on the calendar be much more fruitful. And so I will be at the Scouting Combine. I will be at the owners' meetings, and I think those things are much better. Deal Landry and Simmons, Richard Snyder says, and pray like hell these guys can actually draft. I mean, I think Harold Landry might be done. It did not show much burst this year. I think he finished with 9 sacks. I mean, very few of them were him beating his man and going and getting the quarterback. They were more of the cleanup variety. He pushed his guy back pretty well. I think it was in Houston where he got the safety out of getting in Stroud's face pretty quickly in the back of the end zone. But, I think to get good value for Harold Landry, who's got no guaranteed money left on his deal, but is due a $17 million base salary, I think for somebody to want that $17 million base salary, Titans probably going to have to pick up some of that money. And I like Harold Landry a great deal. I root for Harold Landry a great deal. I think he's got a tremendous work ethic. Maybe as your second rusher, if you get yourself a kick-ass edge guy early in this draft, if Abdul Carter's your guy early, Abdul Carter, maybe that could work. But I'm not thinking so much about what you could get for Harold Landry in a draft as much as I'm thinking about the fact that you need to replace him. Look, by the way, this labeling of the wide receivers as wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 is far more something we do for fantasy football purposes than something teams do in terms of, saying wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. They're saying that one X and Y and Z, or however they name them, guys for certain roles or guys versatile enough to play all 3 of those roles. But you're absolutely right here, Ed, in that Kansas City and Buffalo aren't breaking the bank on wide receivers. Buffalo is as good as it has been in some time, and that's removed from Stephon Diggs, right? And Kansas City has been doing some serious winning since it dealt Tyreek Hill. Now, we can't just say that without saying that the guys they do have are being thrown to by two of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in the league in Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. So you can make things happen with some awfully good wide receivers. And I don't think anybody would say, hey, don't give me Jamar Chase. I don't want Jamar Chase. Don't give me Justin Jefferson. I mean, if you can get a premier wide receiver, you want one. And this team has not invested properly in a big-time, super skilled wide receiver. They tried it with Burks, and they missed. But there's other picks that they made. They trade up for Des Fitzpatrick. And what the hell is that? What the hell is that? A-Double's asking me what's the return for the pick 1 in my mind. I wrote a story about this early in the week at paulkuharsky.com, kind of analyzing Pro Football Network's draft simulator, where you could make draft picks for your team. I had 6 offers as the Titans in the draft, and I'm going to sneeze. I had 6 offers waiting for me as the Titans at the start of this draft. I broke down each one of those trade offers and how realistic they were against 2 trade draft value charts. So that would be good for you to deal with. Logan, you keep asking me about guys, I think, who are free agents. And Dylan Radins is a free agent. And why would you trade him? Like Dylan Radins, if he was under contract, could be a good backup player for you. As soon as the Titans have depth, people want to trade him. I'd like them to re-sign Dylan Radins and have him be the swing guard, the swing third guard. Get a starting right guard and have Dylan Radins be your backup guard. But I suspect somebody will sign, because of the dearth of offensive linemen around, that Dylan Radins will be in play to start at guard somewhere else. This draft is loaded with quality running backs. I don't think the Titans really need one. I mean, he'd be third in the league on the team, and third running back isn't anything the Titans should be touching in the draft. Undrafted free agent to compete with somebody like Chestnut and be a better special teamer than Chestnut. How do I think Mike Vrabel's going to do in New England? Hi, Mike. Good to see you. I think he's going to crush it. One of my big concerns is his hiring staff, and so far, I mean, I don't love Josh McDaniels, but here's what you're going to get with Josh McDaniels is a guy who's not going to leave. He's not getting another head coaching job. So you're getting stability at offensive coordinator. Terrell Williams, defensive line coaches traditionally haven't made the tradition very often to defensive coordinator, but he's a good coach. They kept the special teams coordinator they had on the previous staff. Ryan Crowe's good coach, outside linebackers. He hasn't hired – Tony Dudes is a good coach. Hasn't hired any of the scrubs from his Titans career. So far it looks like he's doing better at putting together a staff. I think he's got to temper himself on going crazy with his kind of guys in the draft and be a little bit more versatile on that. Keep the ego in check. But I think he's a good football coach. I think he's got the best quarterback he's had. I think Drake May stands to be better than Tannehill at his best, who was play-action reliant, Derrick Henry reliant. So we'll see. But I expect big things from Mike in New England. And I'd like to see him do well. Radins is, in fact, a free agent. You can't be sarcastic in here without it being so obvious or without hashtagging sarcasm. Nobody's going to get it. So please, spare us that. It ends up wasting time. Jay, I don't mind a hello. Hello to you. Luke and Charlotte are listening from the school pickup line. I always appreciate the kids. I like to get the kids early. Luke and Charlotte, you are smart ones. This is much better than what you could be listening to, like Taylor Swift. You don't want to listen to Taylor Swift right now. Do I do my own scouting for draft prospects? Listen, I didn't play football. I don't hesitate to admit that. A lot of these people that do their own, I mean, the top guys, I'm dying to know what Dane Brugler thinks. It's his career to scout. A lot of these other people that put together their own lists, what do I need your list for? I mean, there are people employed year-round to give us their list. Do I need another list? Another list. On your list, Abdul Carter's 4 instead of 3. I mean, it's list fatigue. And then this other guy puts together his list or whatever. I mean, there are enough lists out there. You don't need my list. You don't need me to pretend like I'm a scout. I'm a writer, and I'm a reporter. And too many writers and reporters pretend that they're scouts. I think it's a bunch of bullshit. Kemper's at the gym, and this Edley's ad read is making him gain weight. Wait until you get to Edley's, Kemper. It's good to see you, Kemper. Sam is supporting my bad driving stock. Now, Sam's out in the Bay Area. I lived in the Bay Area for a short time. I found people in the Bay Area that want to go. You just can't go because it's bumper to bumper all the time. Jay lives 10 minutes from Berry Farms, born and raised in Franklin. Next week, you should come by. I'll be here Thursday. What do we need to add to the defense? What do I want to add to the defense? Well, you mentioned edge, inside linebacker, and once again, a corner. Where's the need for a corner coming from? The Titans, if they're healthy, have Snead as a starter. I think Brownlee as a starter. Owuzie is outside backup unless they decide to move on for him to save some money, but I don't think he's outrageously expensive. You have McCreary on the inside. McCreary, who I think is underrated or undervalued, excellent player. I mean, I'm not putting corner anywhere high on the listing. I know you can never have too many corners, yada, yada. You can have too many corners if you're drafting a corner. I mean, I think you could take Travis Hunter because you might consider him a generational guy. Other than that, you've got so much to address ahead of corner. It's crazy. You need to draft inside linebacker ahead of corner. You need to draft safety ahead of corner. You need to draft edge rusher ahead of corner. You need to draft another edge rusher ahead of corner. I mean, there's 4 right there, easy, that rank ahead of corner. And I've hit a defensive end you could draft ahead of corner. I've hit every position on the defense ahead of corner. I mean, they got a decent amount of good corners. I didn't even mention Baker at corner, who's a pretty good player and was a good discovery by them at corner. And I think corner is one of the best coach positions on the team. Wilson is a good corner coach as the coordinator. And Chris Harris, I think, has lived up to the billing that he had when he came in 2 years ago. And I think Steve Jackson contributes to, the defensive backfield as a safety coach, has done a pretty good job. So I don't rate corner very high at all. Isaiah from Indy. What's become of Isaiah from Indy? Was he around much after Midday 180 broke up? Callahan mentioned in his Easton interview that just not being a liability on special teams isn't enough. Need to take that next step, make impact plays for the team. Wants top 10 special teams unit. Liked hearing that. And I think Fossil will help you doing that. But where was that attitude at the beginning of the season when they didn't give a shit about special teams? Where was that for the first 6 weeks of the season? Where's that philosophy? He didn't have that philosophy then, or his personnel people didn't listen to him and disregarded him. Now, I feel pretty comfortable putting that on Rand Carfon. I don't know about you guys. But, I mean, Anthony Kendall, Matthew Jackson, Hassan Haskins, all superior special teams players to guys they kept on the back of the roster who weren't very good. I thought that was a Titans old coach for a second. I didn't get a good look at him, but At what point in the offseason do I normally start hearing about free agent connections to teams? You have your heart on Willis coming here and flipping back to right because of Papa Callahan. Trey Smith is the guy that I would be get my heart set on, and obviously there's a big connection there with Borgonzi. I mean, you start hearing that stuff, in February, and I think it really cranks up at the combine. So that's when I would expect to hear it. Yeah, that's a good point. Logan Grady says, follow my producer, JT Runke, for excellent Senior Bowl coverage. And a lot of guys will be down there. I'm just fascinated at the level of intrigue. Titans may pick up a couple guys who play at the Senior Bowl, but watch college kids practice for an all-star game. I mean, surely you have something better to do than that. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question here. Adam asks, is this not a big offseason for Sweat? Like, now he's had a pretty good rookie season, and we need to hope he doesn't get lazy again. Yes. You want him to maintain that conditioning year-round, and we know that that this is a time where some guys get lost from the end of the season to the beginning of the offseason program. And also, he needs to up the pass rush influence. He had 1 sack. They'd like the guy to have 4 or 5 sacks and to be more disruptive in the pass game. I think some people think I've been too hard on him for not having that. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that number 38 to have a bigger influence. Michael says Landry's still only 28. I think he bounces back next year. I mean, he's going to be 3 years removed from that torn ACL. I hope you're right if he's here, but boy, the burst sure looked gone. And some guys just never are the same after something like that. Adam says he wishes the YouTube chat had better options for replying to specific comments. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a conversation between me and you, less than it's a conversation between you guys collectively. But yeah, the better the interactive interface, the better. Yeah, MB says wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 is also a Madden thing, not very realistic. They're spending draft capital on wide receivers, though. They are? Jaquan Jackson is a 6th rounder. I'm thinking through their receivers. Traylon Burks, that was 2018 or 2019. Des Fitzpatrick, they traded up in the 4th round. I mean, that's not the kind of draft capital most of us are talking about. Any 1st, 2nd round wide receiver in this draft, I think. That's the kind of capital I'm talking about. They're all over the place. Richard here is becoming a good contributor. If they can scout wide receivers, those guys are literally all over the draft. That's true. But I'd like top 100 wide receiver. Loden, I hope nobody does this in clips. Don't give me Jamar Chase. Don't give me Justin Jefferson. I know a certain radio host who looks to me to provide most of his content would be all over that. Are 2 Packers guys ever going to draft a wide receiver in the 1st round? It's a good question. He's not really a Packers guy, Borgonzi. He's a Chiefs guy, but the Chiefs don't exactly load up there either. But look, they were not primary there. So all of that time in Green Bay, Brinker could have been saying, boy, I wish we draft a wide receiver. And all that time in Kansas City, Borgonzi could have been saying the same thing. I've never seen /S as a sarcasm indicator, just for the record. It's my chat. Hashtag sarcasm will be the universal indicator of sarcasm. With Liam Cohen taking the Jaguars job, would Levis be trade bait with the Jags to get a 3rd? You think Will Levis is worth a 3rd? Come on! Will Levis just bombed out. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Who's trading one of the worst quarterbacks in the league for a 3rd when they've got Trevor Lawrence? Please, let's be sensible. I like you a great deal, Jim. But that's not the place to go. Here. Paul Kuharsky, what's your name? What's your name?
Paul.
Paul. I'm Paul.
All right.
This is the Paul Kuharsky podcast. I talk about the
Hello,
Titans.
new fans.
He says hello. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to.
Thanks
nice
for
to see
stopping
you.
by.
I appreciate you doing your podcast.
Thanks. There you go. That's Paul. I like people to come over and investigate what's going on. No, that's fine. Wood Ward. Josh, how we doing? Would Ward or Sanders hold more value to a team that wants to run a system closer to Washington? BC feels like he has a more pro-style quarterback for his system. I would agree with that. I'm supposed to tell you that I know the king. This is being passed to. Tell you that I know the king. Which king? Which king? You're the king?
King.
These people think I'm talking about King Henry.
Me and Elvis.
You and
Good
Elvis.
love, baby.
Elvis overrated. Early stuff was good. Then he went off the rails. Would Sanders hold more value to a team that wants to run a system closer to Washington? I don't know, Josh. I mean, I think Callahan does want more of a pocket guy who's not going to run a lot. But Daniels looks like a very good running quarterback to me. So I'm not sure how Washington factors into that. And I think Sanders could be more well suited to Callahan, but I don't like Sanders very much. I really don't. Jeremy, what was said about the amount of picks they would want over the next 3 years, to me, sounds like the path they really want to go. It's the most logical path, as far as I'm concerned, for a consistent winning team year after year. Trade back in 2025. I think a lot of people want that. And Jeremy, how close people have come to that from 2021 to 2023 in those 3 drafts. Who approached 30 picks and 12 top 100 picks, and how did they do with that? What can I tell you about Peyton McCollum? Any interactions with him? Assistant wide receivers coach who's coaching quarterbacks for the West in the East-West Shrine game. I could tell you nothing about Peyton McCollum, and most of us could tell you nothing about assistant position coaches who are not available to talk to. You know, does Brinker report to Nihil? No. Brinker reports to Amy, and Nihil reports to Amy. Borgonzi reports to Brinker. Callahan reports to Borgonzi. Orlovsky, I love him, but this seems crazy to me that they should trade number 1 for Trevor Lawrence and obviously more things. Are you crazy, or is that not the most asinine thing ever proposed? I mean, look, I tend to still think that Trevor Lawrence is going to be better than he's been. I don't know why I am of that opinion. But, yeah, I don't think you could trade number 1 for him. Where are the Jags picking in the draft? What are they, 6th-ish? I don't know. I need a lot more than Trevor Lawrence. And Sam really hates that. He dislikes Lawrence a great deal. Listen, you need to go to Zen Sports, make a bet. Zen Sports, it's the place to make a bet if you are a resident of Tennessee, because they're all about Tennessee. They've got this VIP club sweepstakes going on. The grand prize winner gets $10,000 in bonus bets on the NFL's big game. I don't know if I'm allowed to say Super Bowl or not. $10,000, you can get that plus $10,000. So $10,000 bonus bet, or plus $10,000 in cash, or just $15,000 in cash. Sounds like a hell of a thing to win to me. Small prize winners get $1,000 bonus bet on the big game, or $250 in cash. You earn entries with every bet you place at Zen Sports. So you simply head to zensports.com/sweepstakes for full rules. So you're going to bet probably this weekend on these 2 championship games. Again, I told you I think Buffalo's winning, and I think Philadelphia is winning. I think the Philadelphia-Buffalo game will bring together 2 of the most interesting fan bases in the sport. and I don't think there'll be enough tables in New Orleans for Bills fans to break. I think Buffalo's winning the whole thing. But whatever you're betting, head to Zen Sports, sign up, use the code TNPaul as you sign up. And then for every bet you make, you'll get credits towards these sweepstakes that they run. Current one, again, grand prize winner gets a $10,000 bonus bet on the Super Bowl, $10,000 cash, or a $15,000 cash prize. Small prize winners, a $1,000 bonus bet on the big game, or $250 in cash. Earn entries on every bet you place at Zen Sports apps. At the Zen Sports app, go to zensports.com/sweepstakes for the full rules. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and over and in Tennessee to bet. Great conversation we've had here. Nice crowd in the room. We've got about 10 more minutes. If you want to get a question in, I'm going all the way to the bottom to get the most recent questions there. A lot of discussion about this Lawrence question. Lawrence and 5 for number 1. Remember, we would have to extend Lawrence or let him go soon. Somebody look up how long Trevor Lawrence's contract is. I mean, I think there are crazier things that they could do. Traded first and is it 4th or 5th that the Jaguars have? I don't think it's insane, depending on how Callahan would feel about him. And this is given the context of what is available as quarterback options. But as Sam points out, be crazy on the Jags part. Crazy on the Jags part. I mean, look, you can go a little bit crazy on the Cohen Levis thing. I mean, Cohen may think that he could turn Levis into a better level pro, but is he going to stake his career on him? Or is he going to stake his early thing? I think Liam Cohen would rather work with Trevor Lawrence than Will Levis. So I think it's a little bit crazy. Derek says, I hope the Titans don't keep so many tight ends on the roster like last year. That was a bad move by Rand. They've got a lot of time to sort that out, obviously. Keeping 5 tight ends didn't last too long. Maybe 7, 8 games. But, yeah, I mean, to say the back end of your roster is developmental for Martin Robinson and Odakoya was weird. So the Beatles are not overrated. That is a little odd to pronounce. Billy says that the Titans fans are delusional. I do think that most markets have a better sense of the value of their scrub players. People here think that Traylon Burks has trade value. Traylon Burks has, like conditional 6th, conditional 7th trade value. But nevertheless, my Twitter feed regularly fills up with somebody thinking that the Titans could get something for Traylon Burks. Also, there's no reason to depart from Traylon Burks. First off, he's rehabbing now, and you're on the hook to pay for all that. So there's no reason not to have him rehab with you. And then what is the cost of having him with you in camp? You don't pay him any new money until the season starts. So maybe you're a little worried about him getting hurt again. But if they like him, like if they still like him, I think you have him in camp and you see if something can't happen. Some guys blossom late. I don't think Traylon Burks is going to do that. I doubt they think Traylon Burks is going to do that. But I also think there's a philosophy where you say, and Floyd Reese was big on this. You keep everybody as long as you can in case somebody else falls down the stairs. How do people not interrupt me while I'm doing live chats? I don't know. If you saw a guy doing this at a bar, would you come up and interrupt them? I don't have a problem if they do, but no. And I'd be the kind of guy that might come up and say, "Hey, what are you doing?" But I think most people in the South who don't want to go on driving and want to stop also don't want to go interrupt somebody doing a podcast at the bar. John Kemper doesn't remember much about Isaiah from Indy since the midday 180 split up. Someone mentioned Indy traffic, and it made Kemper think of him. Well, a moment for Isaiah from Indy. He brought a lot of energy. And he also, he was a mailman. He would call from his mail route once in a while, and he'd have a barking dog come after him. And on the radio, I would settle the barking dog. Do people remember me settling the barking dog? I would say, sit, sit. And the dogs would just magically sit. Didn't Brinker mention they were going to build inside out and front to back? That translates to edge, tackle, maybe another interior lineman in my mind. Ed, I don't recall him saying that specifically. And if you say you're going to build inside out and front to back, it doesn't mean those players have to come first. It could mean you draft a really good offensive tackle in the fourth round who you love. It could mean you get the offensive tackle in free agency and you don't draft one at all. Something can be a priority and not come first. And I think that's an important thing. The hype for Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams is unreal. Hard fall if it doesn't work. I noticed that the Bears did the bring the new guy into the lobby and have everybody applaud for him. And I hope for their sake that doesn't end up looking as great as the clip of Rand Carthon coming into that greeting looks. I say bring the guy in the side door and let him go to work. You don't need this fanfare and all this social media stuff. Don't let social media dictate your organization, right? Don't do things for social media. Don't. It's stupid. Yeah, Howie, you shouldn't be confused about the organizational structure anymore. Brinker is Borgonzi's boss. Borgonzi's going to organize the meetings. He's going to set things in motion. Brinker can stop things from happening or make sure things happen. It's pretty much it. It's not really that complicated. Adam says he doesn't think Snead is ever going to be healthy for more than 10 games. I mean, we'll see. That's a prediction. Robert points out something important here, that an elite edge would make the current corners even better. And the corners are the strength of this defense. But, yeah, they're asked to hold up too long, too often. And, the best corners don't hold up for as often as the Titans were asked to hold up. And so that's an issue. Well, Sam, this might be our last question here. What level of vet quarterback would they need to sign for me to think they'd really pass on a quarterback at 101? I mean, I think if you sign a Derek Carr or a Kirk Cousins, I believe they'd pass on a quarterback at 101. I believe they'd pass on a quarterback at 101 if they don't think the quarterbacks are worth 101. And I tend to think at this stage they don't think that people are worth 101. So I think it'd be great if I think they have to sign a bridge quarterback who appears good enough for or not good enough, should I say, for them to think, for the rest of the league to think they'd still take a quarterback, right? The league has to think that they're doing what Atlanta did last year, where you're going to sign a veteran, hopefully not as expensive as Cousins was, where you're going to sign that veteran and still draft a quarterback to develop, and you're going to have two. So we're signing Cousins, but we're still intending to draft a quarterback at 1 unless you knock our socks off. Tall Texan, you're misunderstanding me here. I want them to go in the side door, but I also want people up front and to speak often. Yeah, I don't want them to go in and have a huge celebration with their entire office stop working to applaud him. That has nothing to do with his media availability. I don't want him to skirt his media availability. I just think they look cheesy when they win 3 games and have the whole organization stop working and come out onto the balconies and applaud the new general manager. How'd that work out for Rand Carthon? It made the whole organization look stupid. And I hope the Bears don't look stupid for greeting Ben Johnson the same way. But I would think that trend is going downward. It has nothing to do with avoiding media. These are two entirely separate things. It's not very complicated. Who's the best GM I had the pleasure of covering? I like covering J-Rob a lot. I had a relationship with J-Rob, kind of like my relationship with Ray, where we wrestled about stuff, but had a good understanding of each other. And he was responsive. But Floyd Reese was a terrific guy. It was a different stage of coverage, and you could call him and have long, deeper conversations, get understandings of things, often on the record. So that's it. Why am I down on Sanders so much? I just don't feel like he's going to project into a very good pro. I'm not that high on board either. I don't think either of them are going to be very good pros. As of now, I reserve the right to change my mind. Hey, this has been terrific. We're over an hour now. I thank so many of you for coming. Retweet this so other people can watch it. Be sure to hit a thumbs up and subscribe on YouTube. When you listen on Apple, on Spotify, on iHeart, please like, rate, subscribe. All of that helps me. Eat at Edley's Barbecue, 8 locations all around Middle Tennessee. So you can find one near you without much of a problem. You can check their website, edleysbbq.com. If I can find my damn list, I'll tell you where they all are. Franklin and Berry Farms, where I am, the Franklin and the Factory. 5 points in each Nashville, Sylvan Park, Donaldson, Gallatin, 12 South, and Nolansville. Place some bets at Zen Sports this weekend to get involved in their sweepstakes where you could win some significant bets and cash or all cash. And most importantly, don't block the box, but be sure to lock the locks. 2 really good pieces up. Got to be a member of paulkuharsky.com to read them. If you've been holding out, today's the day to subscribe. I look forward to seeing the email telling me you are part of things. Cheers, everybody.